So sound checking is arguably the most important aspect of shaping the sound and tonality of your band. And your sound is a key factor in how your audience views you as a band. But most musicians are not sound checking properly. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to sound check your instrument or voice. So let's get to it. Hey, and welcome to Music Space, where we help working musicians just like you learn how to quickly and easily make a living with your craft. So if you're new here to the channel, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded. So as I stated, sound check, and more specifically getting a good and proper sound check, is crucially important. How you hear yourself has a huge impact on the way that you perform. If you hear your instrument or voice with a nice smooth tonality with the exact amount of effects that you want on it, it's very inspiring and it really makes you want to play or sing better. And conversely, if you hear yourself poorly or your sound is just horribly bad, you'll be frustrated the entire night and you probably won't perform at your best. Also, your sound has an enormous impact on the way that the audience views you and sees you as a band. You've heard 100 times before where audiences have complained about the sound being too loud, and a lot of times that's the case, but in other cases, it's simply that the sound that's coming out the speakers is just horrible and irritating, and it sounds loud because it's so irritating, like it has a bunch of irritating frequencies in it that hasn't been worked out during sound check. And again, all of this comes down to not sound checking properly. Now, I know that sound men or sound women and bands have this sort of notorious relationship where they want to cut each other's throats. But a lot of that, even that relationship, can be salvaged a lot of times by having a good sound check. Because if we're honest, a lot of the reasons that that relationship between sound men and bands spoil is because during the show you have a lot of the band members shouting at the sound man saying, "Turn me up, turn me up." But again, a good and proper sound check can pretty much solve most of, if not all of, these issues. So let's talk about how to do it properly. Now, right before we get into that, if you're getting value out of this video so far, or my videos on this channel, do me a quick favor and subscribe to the channel and hit the like button on this video. That helps out with the YouTube algorithms and things like that, and that lets me know you appreciate this content, and it helps me to know what type of content to make for you in the future. So first, let me tell you why this whole sound checking thing is really important, and I've sort of spoken to it already. As I say all the time, this channel is about making money. It's what you hear me say in the intros of all of these videos. We help working musicians make more money. And this is one of these things, you know, talking about sound check, it's one of those things, if you don't get right, you put yourself in a position to not get hired again, thus not making more money. If your sound is trash and irritating and not pleasing to the clients or the audience that you're playing for, you can bet your last dollar that the next event they have, they're gonna go with another band. And that's not good for you in the sense of not getting more gigs and, of course, not making more money. Now, getting into the specifics of sound checking properly, we first have to know what the overall purpose of a sound check is. And I know you may be thinking, well, it's kind of simple, but you would be surprised at the amount of musicians that simply don't understand what a sound check is for and how to do it properly. First, sound check is not just about volume. I'll say that again. Sound check is not just about volume. It's not the simple thing of, hey, I can hear myself, so I'm good. And this is really important to understand because a lot of musicians and even some sound men stop at the point of, oh yeah, I can hear myself, so we're good. Sound check is also about getting a good balance between the instruments and the vocals, and also getting a good balance of your sound and shaping your sound to the room or the stage that you're playing on. It's about helping everyone on stage feel comfortable about what they're hearing in their monitors or their in-ear monitors so that they can perform at their best. So a good and proper sound check takes time, and the more instruments or the more musicians you have on stage, or the more sound equipment that you have on stage, or, you know, for house or whatever, the longer it's going to take to get a proper sound check. Now, one very important thing to note here is that no one, I repeat, no one should be playing while another instrument is sound checking. This is crucially important. It's one of these things that happens all the time where the sound man is calling for kick drum and then the bass player is playing, doing riffs on his bass, or the sound man is calling for, the lead vocalist and then the keyboard player is playing. During sound check, allow each individual musician on stage their time to get their sound right before you start, doing riffs on your instrument or licks on your drums or whatever. That's one of the things that goes into getting a proper sound check. Now, I want to run through a list of the most common instruments that we use on stage as musicians and how to properly sound check on those instruments. And the first instrument we'll start with is drums. Drummers, drummers, drummers. Repeat after me. Sound check is not shed time. Get that? Stop shedding and chopping and practicing during your sound check. As a drummer, the proper way to sound check is when the sound man calls for, say, your kick drum, you give him a constant hit on your kick drum until he says stop, usually at like do, 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 do. And you may be doing that for a minute or two before he says go on to the next drum, but that's the proper way to do it. And you usually want to be doing these hits at around the volume that you normally play at. Don't play any of the rest of your drums until the sound man tells you to go to that drum. And when he does, this constant beat on each drum goes for pretty much every drum on your kit. So when he calls for tom 1, doom, 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 at a constant sort of intensity so that he can hear what's going on with your drum set, and do that all around your kit. So that goes for your kick, snare, and all of your toms. And when it comes to your cymbals and hi-hats and overheads, it's kind of the same thing. You kind of want to be doing some constant hits so that the sound man can hear what's going on. Just make sure that if you have a mic on your hi-hat and you're testing your hi-hat, make sure you do some open and closed hi-hat stuff. Now next up are vocalists. Vocalists, you need some sort of song or phrase or warm-up that you can sing that's indicative of the music that you're going to be performing on stage. And whatever this song or phrase is, it needs to cover your entire vocal range, or at least most of your vocal range. Meaning it should cover the lowest notes that you're going to hit on up to the higher notes that you're going to hit with more intensity. Keep your mouth around 2 or 3 inches away from the mic unless the sound man directs you differently. And I know some sound men and some bands and stuff do this differently, but in most cases you're going to need that sort of close proximity effect because there's so many other instruments going on that will bleed into your mic. And when you're sound checking, make sure you sing power phrases along with softer ones. So some of the softer parts of the phrase or song, sing those, as well as the songs where you're going to be belting out, or the part of the song where you're going to be belting out notes. And the best thing to do is find a song that fits you, that has all of these intricacies in it, and sound check with that, even if it's a song you won't be performing with that particular night. Now next up is bass guitar and guitars. Now it's really important for bass players and guitar players to sound check using a song or playing a song rather than, sound checking hitting random notes or random chords. And the reason for this is a lot of times those random notes and random chords are not indicative of a lot of the stuff that you play on stage. Most of the time, guitar players and bass players, when they call for your instrument, you're just kind of hitting riffs and stuff like that, which I talked about. Again, sound check is not the time for that, or at least that's not the best way to do it. So just like vocalists, you want to test your instrument during sound check, the whole range of the instrument. So bass players, for you, that's if you're on a 5-string, that low B string, or the low E string, the open E string if you're on a 4-string. And guitar players, of course, that's your low E string as well. A great song that I like to play, or a great song for guitarists to play during sound check, is a song like Play That Funky Music, because it has that sort of wide range of things that you can play in a song. That riff where you're starting off on that E, that you can have that, and it has that low E in it, and then you can also move to the chording part where you're doing in the song that like you can do that part, and you're testing pretty much the full range of your instrument, or at least most of it. You have that low part where that low note is hitting, and you have the sort of chord structures up in your mid-range. And a great song for bass players is Let's Groove Tonight by Earth, Wind & Fire. It's one of those songs, again, where it starts on that low E, that open E string, and you can play that part, that dun, 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 dun. And you're getting sort of a low end. And even if you go to the bridge of the song where the bass note starts on the A, I believe, it goes to that A minor 9 or A minor 7 chord. That A puts you a little bit higher up the bass, and you can test those notes as well. So that's a good song, or those are good songs for guitar players and bass players to sound check on. And I should note that this goes for both acoustic and electric guitars. Now next up are keyboard players. And keyboard players, it's really simple. All you really need to do is just go through the full range of your instrument, playing it at different intensities. And this is especially true if you play a full 88 key keyboard on stage. You really need to make sure that you're sound checking and you're getting those low notes in when you're sound checking. Some good songs that I like to sound check on when I'm playing keyboards are Don't Stop Believing by Journey. Again, because you have that low E in there and you can hear sort of those low notes and the mid range of those chords. And if you're double stacked on the keyboard where you're playing like the synth parts on the top, you can do that sort of high synth part on the top as well, and you're pretty much going through the full range of your keyboards. And the other song I really like to sound check on is the intro to Minute by Minute by Larry Carlton. It has that sort of low note thing in it that's doing this all the way up, and the chords are kind of coming, they're going sort of counterpoint to each other. So it has the mid range and the low range of the keyboard. So those are good songs that I like to sound check on that works, you know, pretty much in all situations. And again, if you're double stacked with keyboards on stage or using multiple keyboards on stage, simply go through this process of, you know, doing this with all of those keyboards, using the particular sounds that you're going to use on those keyboards. Now, for everyone else and all other instruments on stage, these principles go for you as well. All of the principles that I mentioned for the other instruments apply to you. So percussion instruments, string instruments, horns, things like that. Make sure when you're sound checking to do a song or phrase that sort of covers the entire range of your instrument that you'll be playing, or at least the range that you'll be playing on stage that particular night. So what I've shown you here is the importance of sound check and sound checking properly. I've shown you how good or bad sound can affect the way that you hear yourself, thus the way that you perform or play. And it also affects the way that the audience views you and perceives you as a band, and the way that the audience and clients hear you as a band or view you as a band directly affects things like whether or not they will hire you again. So definitely start putting more time and effort into getting a good and proper sound check and doing it properly, because that will translate into you likely getting more gigs. And of course, getting more gigs means more money in your pocket. But the question is for you. How has a poor sound check or no sound check at all affected you as a musician or as a band while you were performing? Has a really good sound check affected the way you play and affected the way that the audience hears you? Jump down in the comments and let me know. I definitely want to hear your thoughts on that. And listen, thank you so much for watching this video. I really do hope that it was helpful for you and you start getting great sound checks. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button on this video. And here are some other videos that you can check out right now.